Hello and welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Apparently people really liked us talking about Ghost in the Shell, or at least liked clicking on the video a couple of hundred times.
Yep.
So that was good.
That.
Really enjoyed talking about Ghost in the Shell. Obviously, great movie.
The Wings of Desire one, which is a shame, but
people need to listen. That's one of my favorite of our reviews, actually.
yeah, mine too.
That was what I went in thinking wasn't going to go that well, and it actually turned out to be probably one of our best ones.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, all good. Looking forward to talking some movies today. We've even seen some together. So obviously the big news of the week is that Doctor Who came back. Star Beast premiered on Saturday. So let's talk about Oppenheimer.
I was thinking, where is he going with this? There's no fucking way I watched it.
Nope. No, let's talk about Oppenheimer.
I mean, I've heard nothing but bad things.
Yeah, me too. I didn't watch it, and then by 2 days later, I felt justified in not watching it. I was like, good, okay, cool.
Yeah, well done, Davis. You completely fucked it more than it
it was your last chance, right? Surely.
Yeah.
But I feel like people have given you a chance, and it was probably the last one you were going to get. But whatever. Let's talk about Oppenheimer, a film which I think is the polar opposite. I thought this was great, actually, overall. But
Okay.
I'm curious what you made of it.
Yeah.
Both. I've only seen 2 films this week, and they were both long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's.
I have caviets to saying that I liked it.
Beautifully done.
It's well shot. I mean, some of the shots are incredible.
From Nolan anyway. To be honest, he's got an eye in, or he's cinematographer. It's got an eye. The music was good, except for that was again. What is it with Nolan and having the soundtrack too fucking loud?
Yes, it is a Nolan trait, and it's not just a home experience thing. It is definitely a sound mix problem, because I see it in the cinema with his films as well.
Yeah, it worked really well on the build up to the detonation.
Yeah, that was superb. That was probably the standout scene, and that is incredible.
The sort of the way that the soundtrack rumbled along and stuff, that was great. But other times there's just it's like I can't hear what fucking Matt Damon's saying. What the fuck? Can we just dial it back a bit? Because I can, surely you want us to know what they're fucking saying.
Yeah, you would think, right? The time that I remember this, I remember noticing this, like noticeably with Nolan movies, was The Dark Knight. That was the film where either the music was too loud or the explosions were too loud. And like when you're trying to watch it at home, to this day, I don't know if there's like a Blu-ray release that fixes it, but to this day, if I watch The Dark Knight, I'm constantly turning the volume up for the dialogue scenes and down for the action scenes, and up and down. And it's such a pain in the ass. And it feels like every film he's done since then has had the same problem.
Tenet was the worst. Tenet was terrible.
Arguably, Tenet it's his worst movie anyway, but yes.
Well, yeah, that's true, but there's just whole bits of Tenet where you can't hear a fucking thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real issue, and it
doesn't help that all the characters are fucking mumbling in that movie as well.
Yeah. This movie certainly is no exception to that rule. The sound mixing is, I agree. It's all over the place. It's obviously a decision that he's made. It's like an artistic choice to him.
It must be. Yeah, it feels like it's deliberate.
Yeah. Well, it is too many films to not be.
Movies, it can't just be a mistake.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a deliberate thing. It's just I wish he'd fucking stop.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking annoying.
The gimmick for this movie, because Nolan has to have gimmicks, is doing scenes in black and white. It seems to be his thing this time. It didn't really work for me, if I'm honest.
There's a couple of movies recently that I've seen that have done similar things, and it's like I kind of get like that awful bloody Wes Anderson movie that they did a similar thing on that. It's like, it's like differentiate between this and that, and it's like, okay, it might have worked better in this. I don't know why he did it in this.
I had the same feeling with the black and white in this that I did when he did everything out of sequence in Dunkirk, where I was like, this would have been a better movie if you just hadn't,
I don't understand why he fucking did that on Dunkirk. Dunkirk did not need to be a Tarantino movie.
No, it's almost like he did Inception, and everyone thought it was massively clever. And then since then, he's had to always have a gimmick in everything he does. And in this one, it's the black and white, which is probably the least egregious of his gimmicky things, but it's still unnecessary to me. And it was kind of like, in many ways, maybe just make the whole movie in black and white, and then just have the color be the bomb. Maybe,
I mean, I suppose the black and white is supposed to be it's Robert Downey Jr.'s character's perspective, isn't it? So yes. I guess it's like uncolored, supposedly, which I guess kind of makes sense for his character.
It does. Can I say how refreshing it is to see Robert Downey Jr. Acting amazingly well in a role that's not just fucking Iron Man?
Honestly, I think this is one of his best roles.
Yeah, I agree. And because even when he was like Sherlock Holmes, it's like you're just basically Tony Stark with an English accent.
With an English accent.
Like that's kind of and it. I
actually think he's more of an asshole than Sherlock Holmes.
He is. It's variations on the role.
Yeah.
But it's been ages since I've seen him in a performance where I'm like, oh, that's completely different. Like he's actually playing.
This is his. Yeah, I think it's probably one of his best roles.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the best role in the movie.
Yes, I must admit, he stole the movie from me.
Try not to give anything too much away. Really.
It's a historical thing, so I guess
the beginning makes you. He's very. One of my favorite lines is when he's talking. It's the first meeting with Oppenheimer.
Yeah. And
Oppenheimer, they're talking about another scientist.
Yes.
And Oppenheimer like arrogantly says, "Oh, he was a lowly shoe salesman."
Yeah.
And Downey Jr.'s character goes, "No. He was just a shoe salesman."
Yeah.
And that immediately sort of makes you warm to Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, I can't say anything.
No, I know. It's a wonderful portrayal of a character.
He's so good.
Yeah.
So good. There's some moments where you just think, oh my god, wow, Robert Downey Jr., fucking fair play to you.
And Robert Downey Jr. is by far the standout in a movie that like has the most ludicrous cast. Like, even like bit parts are played by huge stars in this movie. Like everyone wants to be in a Nolan movie, apparently.
Apparently, Nolan said he wanted to make sure that there was no mistaking characters. He didn't want anybody to have anybody that characters would turn up and do stuff, and he wanted everybody to look different, everybody to be a different person, sort of thing. So he just hired ridiculous actors, and it's like Rami Malek's in it for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman's in it for like 5 minutes,
if that. Yeah. I mean, Gary Oldman's like,
and it's.
But again, they turn up, and like Rami Malek turns up and gives an amazing performance. Gary Oldman turns up and gives an amazing performance for like 5 minutes, but he's great. But in all of that, and to take nothing away from Cillian Murphy, who I thought was fantastic in this film.
Mm-hmm. I actually feel slightly sorry for him because I think he's actually upstaged by most of the cast.
Yes, he's great, but he is certainly upstaged by Robert Downey Jr. in this. I also thought he was probably upstaged by Emily Blunt, if I'm honest.
Yes.
Because she's fantastic in this.
She was so wonderful.
The bit towards the end, the interview bit, was so. I was like, oh, this is so satisfying.
Yeah.
She was great. Yeah.
Even.
Matt Damon. It's great.
Yeah, Matt Damon was fantastic. I mean, who is it? That Jason Clarke was great.
Yeah.
Even Scott Grimes in his very tiny part was wonderful.
Yeah.
And now I can't remember her name, and she's not on that bit there. The one that was his lover, the English actress.
Florence Pugh.
Yes, Florence Pugh. Thank you. She again, it's a very small part, really.
There were some great bits with her, though.
But,
I loved the bit when Emily Blunt's character's like kind of seeing her in court, and she's kind of like,
good, isn't it?
That was an amazing scene.
That was really good.
And yeah, it's like it's not a huge role, all told, especially considering a name like Florence Pugh these days.
Yeah.
But what a tremendous performance again,
I loved the way he saw the physics. They showed, the way his mind, it kind of slightly reminded me of Amadeus.
Yep.
in the way that, you know, Salieri describes music and how Mozart sees the music in his head and stuff. It reminded me sort of that, and it's really beautifully done. There's some absolutely beautiful things in this movie.
Yeah.
However, by hour 3, I just wanted it to end.
Yeah, it is long, and you do start to feel that time for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably the worst thing for me is I didn't care enough.
Well, it's a subject and a character that isn't going to appeal to everyone.
No.
I'm not going to pretend like I know the history of the person Oppenheimer.
No, enough,
I know. Yeah, it's same as you. Like I know the broad strokes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I kind of agree. I do think it was unnecessarily long. You know, we talk about this all the time. Like I'll happily sit through a long film.
Yeah.
If
you have to
if it warrants
well
it. And I did feel like there were certainly parts of this movie you could lose. Yeah. And the story would be fine and probably punchier for it.
I think definitely you could lose half an hour.
Oh,
an
yeah.
hour at the most.
I would say half an hour. I'm not sure I'd go to an hour, but yeah. Certainly you could lose some time, make it a bit punchier, make it a little more palatable. Because like you, I must admit, I was, you know, towards the end of hour 3, I was like, could we, you know, let's end this.
Yeah.
I
mean, like I said, it's beautifully done. It's well put together.
I mean, Nolan. I will never take away Nolan's eye. Like it is him and his cinematographer. They are superb, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every film looks incredible. Tenet, I fucking hated it, but it looked amazing.
Yeah.
And this
I
looks
didn't hate it. I liked. There were bits I liked.
Oh, there were bits I liked, but it's my least favorite of his films, I think, by a long shot.
I've still never seen Interstellar, and I don't think I ever will.
Interstellar is really, really good until the end, which is like magic wand waving bullshit. But it's great until that point. Yeah, that's real shame. There's some wonderful designs in that film, and again, wonderfully shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's full of amazing performances. I mean, Josh Hartnett turns up; he's great, and
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah. It's, you know, all these. I mean, sometimes it is in danger of.
It is a bit of a flex.
Too many people.
It does feel like a bit of a flex, I must admit.
And it's like, oh god, you've got this person, and this person, and this person. It's like, but none of them actually do anything really.
Yeah.
And most of them, anyway, they just sort of turn up and say a few things and disappear, and it's like, did we really need that? I mean, Tom Conti is Einstein, great.
Yeah,
he was wonderful, and the scenes where I love that there was that thing with, you know, again, don't want to spoil anything, but
the scene where he basically says, "This is going to happen to you," or "This is happening." Yes, I agree. That was a wonderful scene.
Brilliant, and it was so good, and that's kind of the start of where you. I mean, obviously, it's near the end, but
yes,
because we don't find out what was said until the end.
Yeah, there's a conversation that's had between Oppenheimer, and him and Einstein. It's the mystery of the movie, isn't it? It's kind of like what was said there, and you find out right at the end. But that scene is fantastic. Yeah,
it's so good, and it's also the sort of beginning of him. Because I mean, he's an arrogant bastard through most of the movie, but it's the first sort of.
It's the first time he kind of realizes that they're not behind him and on his side. They're using him, and it's kind of that it's that moment. This kind of like, oh,
yeah.
It's difficult to talk too much about it without spoiling stuff. So
I would kind of recommend it for somebody who's got the patience and really wants to watch the movie.
I would absolutely recommend it personally. But I will say, you know, this is one of those movies that I can only categorize as I really liked this movie. I thought it was great. I will probably never watch it again.
Oh, I will never watch this again.
Like I'm glad I watched it and move on. It has no rewatchability to me. Like I would rewatch Inception. I would rewatch the Batman trilogy. I'd rewatch Interstellar, to be honest. But I wouldn't rewatch this. And I really enjoyed it. It's just not the kind of movie that's going to bring me back.
Yeah,
ever.
I think most of his earlier ones I'd rewatch. Certainly The Prestige.
The Prestige is one of the best. Such a good movie.
And I love Memento.
Yeah, Memento's great. Yeah,
I don't care what anybody says. Oh, if you take away the gimmick, it's a shit movie. It's like, no, it isn't. It's still a great movie. Just that has a great gimmick as well.
Yeah.
It's just a basic story if you take away the gimmick, I suppose.
But it's still well made. It's still
exactly.
going to be a good film. Yeah. I would certainly recommend it. Just be aware it is 181 minutes long. And,
yeah, I think that's the thing. I would say, if you're really interested in Oppenheimer, then I don't know, maybe watch a documentary, because I think you could probably get more from a documentary than you would from this movie, unless you want the visuals and the performances, which I would definitely recommend. Mainly just for Robert Downey Jr.'s performance.
Yeah, because for a 3-hour movie, it starts with him at 20-ish, right? Mm-hmm. And that's cool. But I thought for a 3-hour movie, we were gonna follow a large portion of his life up to the bomb. And it kind of doesn't. It kind of briefly touches on him being 20 odd, and then it just skips ahead. And it's
he moves from country to country sort of thing, doesn't he? And
the
weirdest thing is they don't even they keep mentioning, oh, he's part of the Communist Party and all this sort of stuff.
We don't see much.
You see any of that?
It's mentioned occasionally, and I think they have one meeting, right? He attends one meeting that we see. But you're right. You don't see it, and for a movie that's so long. It's it would be nice to see some of these things, I mean,
it's mostly about the bomb, so you get a very big chunk of it, which is to do, Well,
it's mostly about the bloody court case, really, or the not court case.
Yes.
But yes, the bomb plays the major kind of center stage, isn't it? It's the set piece, and that is, by the way, a wonderfully directed scene, a fantastic scene. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed the movie. It is just one of those movies where I'm like, that was great. I will not watch that again. And I agree with you. You could easily lose half an hour. Mm-hmm. If I was editing it, I would lose half an hour.
Honestly, I think it would. It's redundant, really, but I think it would have made a better series than the movie.
Yeah, you could have taken a bit more time to explore his earlier life, and I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I would recommend it, but I would say it's very flawed. It's not. It's not. I don't think it's his best. I don't think it's his best. It's far from his worst as well. So.
Yeah, it's always difficult coming in on these movies that people have hyped up for since the summer, being the best thing ever made, and you kind of get to it and you're like, oh really? Is that it? But yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, it's just be prepared for, maybe have a break halfway through or something.
I did. I had a break.
I wish I did. I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah, what happened? Something happened. I think someone phoned me. And I was like, oh, that was nice. I'm halfway through this. I'm halfway through this. I've got a nice intermission where I could just have a chat on the phone to a friend, and then I'll go back to the movie. Oh no. Actually, Mark from the Hathaway House of Horror, he wanted to talk to me about something, so we had an online web chat in the middle of the movie, because I was like, I actually said to him, I was like, this works out really nicely, because this movie was, that's probably why I didn't find it as kind of arduous as you did, because I had a nice half-hour break in the middle where I talked about something else and then went back to it. Which to your point leans towards mini-series probably would have been better, but But yeah, it's a good movie. I do recommend it. But like I said,
performances alone really is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful performances.
Yeah. So, what else have you watched?
So I saw Landscape with Invisible Hand.
Yes, which I said to you sounds like a wanky student art film, but apparently is not. So
it does sound very much.
It's the name. It's just the name. I don't know anything about this movie, so tell me.
Basically, it takes place in. I think it's based on a book, which obviously I haven't read. It takes place in a world where aliens have turned up, and it's kind of like the World's End, where that they've given us technology and they want us to they kind of do that. They've made basically almost everything redundant,
Right.
So humans now
have nothing to do.
Are not doing a lot.
Yeah.
They're, you know, and they're not really earning enough money to do anything, and they're not, you know, all these things keep getting made redundant, and there are humans that have got jobs that work for the aliens. Somebody describes the aliens as looking like slimy coffee tables.
Yeah, they kind of look like that from the thumbnail. Yeah.
Yeah, and they communicate by like rubbing their hands together in this sort of really weird, sort of almost slurpy, sort of farty kind of sounding noises.
Right.
And they live in these. They've got basically a giant spaceship out, sort of just, you know, outside of, you know, Earth, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they have these cities, these floating cities that they've got dotted around Earth that just sort of, you know, go over places, and humans have sort of started working for them. There's one guy who's like a driver for one, even though it doesn't need a driver, he's got a driver because he used to be a surgeon, and it's kind of like a cool status symbol to have a servant that could do something years ago, you know, before.
Yeah,
it's weird thing, you know, weird stuff like that, and you're basically introduced to Adam, who is a sort of high schooler, and he lives with his mum, played by Tiffany Haddish.
Right.
Santi Black is the guy who plays Adam, and he basically does all these paintings. And there's a really nice scene, sort of set up at the beginning of the movie, where it's like the first is like a portrait of him and his family, like happy family, his mum, dad, and his little sister, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then slowly the paintings change. They get a little bit better as obviously he's getting older, and there are things like the people arrive, and then it's like food starts disappearing, and it's like there's empty shops and things being shown and all that sort of, and the titles are basically why this movie is titled the way it is, because it's one of his paintings that you get to much later on.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a nice little way of like showing how the world has changed through painting form in like a brief sort of opening, and I quite like that. I thought it was quite cool. So he meets this new girl in town, Chloe, and her dad and her brother, they've basically been living in their car, and they're completely broke and they can't find a job. And Adam basically is completely smitten with Chloe, and he persuades his mum to take them in, so they end up living in their basement, and they are very fucking weird. It's really odd, their relationship they sort of have. But basically, Chloe and Adam come up with this this scheme. So they are going to broadcast their relationship, because the aliens don't have emotions, and they don't have, you know, love or hate or anything like that, and they're kind of fascinated with it. So basically there are whole, you know, groups of people that are just basically like living Kardashian sort of things. They're all filming their you know their lives. And
Kardashians.
Sorry?
Kardashian.
Yes.
I thought you said Cardassian. I was like, what?
No.
What? That's why I laughed. I was like, Kardashian?
Like Kardashians. Yeah.
Garrick.
You're already guilty of any crime.
Yeah.
Their trials are just, you know, formalities.
Yeah, you like reality TV show people.
Yes, reality TV shows. You know, housewives. Or
yeah, I got you.
So they sort of start thinking, and at first, Adam and Chloe, they have a proper connection, but Adam seems to be into it more than the actual relationship into it more than Chloe is. And then they basically get this letter that says they're going to be sued. Because their love isn't real. They've just been stringing people along, and they get called up to this like city, and they get told by this person, the alien, that they're going to sue them, and they have to pay back all of the money that they've made. And like, well, we can't. We've used it all to live. You know, we bought food, and we, you know, And they're like, oh, well, if you can't pay it back, then we will sue you, and you won't be able to pay it back within 8 generations of your family.
Right.
So it's like they have to, and his mum is a lawyer, but because of the way things have gone, she's no longer a lawyer. She's basically got no sort of job. She's just doing bits and pieces. She gets a job working at a pizza place, I think, eventually. But she comes up with this scheme that she goes up to see this alien. She says, "Is there anything I can do, to help to stop you from suing my son?" And the alien says, "Oh, my child loved your son and your son's transmissions at first. He really bought into it. So basically, they come up with this thing where her son, the creature's, the alien's son or whatever he is, will live with them as her husband."
Right.
And they will basically live like a 50s lifestyle sort of thing. And the alien just watches things like, I think it's Leave It to Beaver and stuff like that, and all those sort of things. And meanwhile, as the movies go on, things like schools are being, there's a really not terrifying, but there's a really nasty bit where one of the teachers basically gets told, "Yep, I'm basically out of a job." Because basically everybody's just going to be taught from these things that they click onto their heads.
Yeah.
So I'm out of a job now, and then it further on down the whole school gets closed, and there's that's it. Go home. There's no point being around anymore. School's closed, and he paints this big mural. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to sort of spoil anything, but it's a fucking depressing movie. It's really sort of like, wow, this future fucking sucks. It's awful, but it's so good. I really enjoyed it. It's a weird fucking movie. Don't get me wrong, but it's the sort of the interactions between the humans, the sort of the two families that are living. They sort of resent each other and they keep arguing about stuff, and it's over stupid bullshit. And you just think, wow, these people are fucking awful. But you think, well, that's probably how you would be if everything has just become redundant now. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Your whole life is now fucked because aliens have just sort of, they kind of give you stuff. Food now comes in these little like square parcels and stuff, and they kind of provide everything, but not not greatly. It's a horrible existence that most humans now have in this sort of like awful place, and it's a little ham-fisted with its parallels. Obviously, there's stuff with race, there's stuff with slavery, there's stuff with technology. And I think for the most part, it's relatively well done. There's a little bit of times you go, oh, okay, fine, I understand what you're saying there, but you could probably have done it a little bit easier than that. But I think the main cast, Santi Black as Adam, he's really good. He's a really cool kid, and Tiffany Haddish, who plays his mum, who I've seen her in a number of movies, and she's one of those big shouty actresses that people really love, and it's like, I don't get it. It's really, why she's not funny. It's just screaming it very loudly and seems to tickle people for some reason. Don't get it, but in this, she's actually fucking acting. She has an actual character, and she feels like a real person. And I think it's one of the first times I've actually seen her actually do that.
It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it is. I find it really funny, and it's got it will fucking bring you down. But it is. I love what they've done, and I love the way they do it, and I wouldn't say a satisfying ending, but it's got an ending that you're like, okay, yes,
right.
I like what they did there. There's a really cool, neat thing. There's something that happens. It's to do with the title of the movie, and what they offer the Adam character, and what happens when he sort of takes them up on this offer. I really liked it. I think it's a really weird and enjoyable movie that I think more people need to see it, because it's a very interesting film.
Right.
But it's pretty out there with its weirdness, but great performances, and it's a nice little sort of sci-fi.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Almost dystopian sci-fi movie.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. Well, I watched Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible 7.
Yeah.
Dead Reckoning Part 1. There we go.
I was going to say, I can't remember the name as well.
Bloody title. The movie that had like one of the shittest trailers I've ever seen in my life. Back in that, it felt like way too early, and it was just disjointed action scenes with no plot whatsoever. Remember that trailer?
Yeah, I do.
But the movie's out.
It was a weird thing, because it was. I think it was quite shocking that it came and kind of went. Yeah,
it didn't do very well, I don't think.
No, not very many people went to see it, and we were. I thought, after Maverick, I thought, oh well, this is going to be.
It was a shoo-in. I think it was one of the more shocking film releases of the year that it didn't do well at all.
And all the others have done.
They've all done very well.
So
yeah, and I think it will do very well on streaming and everything else. It's it's almost as long as Oppenheimer. For part one, it's 164 minutes. So this is part one of two. I hope I'm not doing like 3 or anything. I think it's a 2-part.
They've also said they're retooling it, aren't they? Because I don't think it's going to be coming out for another year yet after.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Maybe they think, well, we'll get people to watch the first one, get some hype, and then when they get to the second one, when we release it, there'll be the hype there. So yeah, this one, it kind of continues the tropes of Mission Impossible, the movies. And in fact, it's got good humor about it, because it does kind of make fun of it a few times. Mm-hmm. There is a character in this who's like, they're after Ethan Hunt, and I'll get into the plot in a minute, but they're after Ethan, and someone said, oh, he's gone rogue, and the other guy's like, he always goes rogue. It's just like they do it every movie. I think
that's one of the saving graces about these movies, that they know what they are.
They know what they are. Yeah, I agree. They very much know what they are, and as a result, they become very fun. This movie, effectively, is we kind of open with this Russian submarine called the Sevastopol, and it's got this advanced AI on board, and it has this is activated by this ludicrously designed key that comes in 2 parts, and is the central focus of our film. The AI fools the crew into thinking there's another sub out there, and they launch a missile. A missile? No, underwater missile. Torpedo. They launch a torpedo at the sub, only to discover the sub's not there. But then the torpedo comes back and hits the sub itself, and the AI tricked them and caused them to basically fire on themselves. We then cut to IMF agent Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, and he's in the desert trying to find Lisa, the woman who everyone thinks is dead but isn't dead, his girlfriend, love interest. She's got half the key, and they all need to get the key, and everyone wants the key because the key, basically, the AI has gone itself rogue, because everyone goes rogue in these movies. The AI
goes rogue.
The AI has become like Skynet or something. Yeah. It's like self-aware now, and it basically is doing what the fuck it wants. Every like power in the world wants to get their hands on this key, because the key, basically, if you use the key, you will control the AI. You basically get control over the AI. The only person that wants to destroy the AI is Ethan, seemingly. So we have like multi different organizations and groups and governments all vying to get the key, which comes in 2 halves conveniently and has been split up. So they need 2 parts of the key. So it's basically a race against time, and you know, Benji and all of that lot the team come back, and they're joined this time by Hayley Atwell, who plays a thief. She's like, you know, in that kind of typical thief vein. She's not interested in any of this shit. She just wants money.
Yeah.
There's a really funny, unintentionally funny part in this movie, which has, it's just not aged well, where she reveals her motives because she early in the film she steals the key.
Right.
And off of the one of the buyers, or one of the sellers, sorry. Because I think Ethan Hunt's got one key, one part of the key, and this person had the other half. And the idea was that they were going to have a meeting, and you know, he was going to be someone else, as they do in Mission Impossible all the time. And they were going to swap the keys. But she stole it, and we find out later her motivation was like, oh, they were gonna pay me millions in cryptocurrency. And it's like, wow, it's worth nothing now. It's like, I'm sure at the time this movie was written that probably meant something, but nowadays
I've seen a number of things recently where they keep,
well, it was going to be the big thing, right?
See,
I mean, maybe it is still a thing, but all I ever hear is the amount of money people have lost on it. So I think that ship is sailed, but obviously when they wrote this, it was like, oh, crypto might be the thing, and it may still be, who knows, but that made me laugh. But yeah, so it's basically like almost 3 hours of just non-stop, extremely well made action. They really know how to put together action scenes. They're at once ludicrous and also like incredible to watch, because they're just super slick and super flowing. You know, there's a real flow to Mission Impossible action scenes.
Yeah.
And I feel like they've really got it down to a science now. And they really ramp up the scale of, like, you know, like you have like what seemingly is like, you think it's a big action set piece, but then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a bit at the end which is amazing on the Orient Express, which is falling off a bridge, and they're like climbing through it. Someone blows up a bridge, and the Orient Express is like falling off the bridge. The front half falls off, and yeah, but each cart keeps falling, so they're climbing up through the carts as each cart is going down, and it's like wonderfully directed visual, car chases, you know, all of it. It's all there. There's a really funny scene, which is, and I think intentionally funny, where the head of IMF is talking to, like, I can't think of what he is. He's like, you know, director of security for America or something.
Yeah.
And he's unaware that there's this secret group, and he's basically asking the guy. He's like, what group are you talking about? And he's like, IMF, and he's like, it's our secret group. It's called IMF, and he's like, what, the like, you know, International Money Fund or something. He's like, no, not money. Like, it's the other IMF. And he's like, well, what does it stand for? And the guy actually says, like, Impossible Mission Force, with a straight face. And the other guy's like, you are joking. And you kind of get this moment of self-awareness in the guy's face where he's like, yeah, now that I've said that out loud, that sounds really fucking dumb. But you know, it's very, these movies, as you put it at the start of this, these movies know exactly what they are. And if you enjoyed the other Mission Impossible movies and feel like you would enjoy Mission Impossible for almost 3 more hours, you'll get it. There's a lot of action. The polar opposite to Oppenheimer, this movie goes very quickly because it's extremely well paced and just fun. Leave your brain at the door and enjoy it. Always nice to see Hayley Atwell. She is a great addition to the cast. In this, she's fantastic. She generally is fantastic, even when she's in crap. She's
another one of those actresses that keeps getting put in either crap or you know, stuff that's just, I think, beneath her.
Yeah, I would love to see a spin-off of her character from this, if you know, if Tom Cruise is not interested in continuing.
Agent Carter never got the audience it needed, because Agent Carter was really good.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the first season was brilliant. The second season slipped a little bit, but it was a really good show. I really enjoyed it, and she was great in it.
Yeah,
and she's been in some good things, but she I don't think she gets the right roles, really. Vanessa Kirby's in it as well, and she's great too. It's got a really good cast. I mean,
it's got a fantastic cast. And
Pom Clementif and Carrie Helwes, Mark Gatiss. It's like Jesus.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that, although it's the 7th in the series, it does reference some older movies. You don't need to know though. You can go into this and just enjoy it as a film on its own.
Yeah.
Certainly there is definitely a part 2, and the movie's very clear about that. But it does wrap things up, reasonably well for this part. It doesn't kind of end on a big. Well, it does end on a cliffhanger, but the immediate situation is resolved. So it's more of a Empire Strikes Back kind of thing, as opposed to some massive cliffhanger. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's more of the same basically.
It's kind of how I thought it was going to run.
Well, we're 7 movies in. They're not going to change the fucking formula now, are they?
No, well, I think they're going to try because it didn't do very well.
I don't know why they're worried. Isn't the next one the last one they're doing anyway? Like, fuck it, just release it. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's made now.
I mean, there's got to be a point where Cruise stops chucking himself around. I mean, he's not getting any fucking younger.
There are definitely scenes in this movie where it looks like there's some definite digital touching up of his face because he's old. Yeah. He's old. And they don't really reference it. Unlike the other thing I watched, which they do reference it, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I recommend it. It's good fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, what else have you watched?
I shall go with The English.
The English.
So this is a TV series that actually came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's done by, I think, the BBC and I guess a Spanish company, I think. And it's Emily Blunt plays this aristocratic lady in the 1800s, 1880s. Cornelia Locke she plays, and Jessica, I think his name is Spencer, who plays Eli Whip, who's an Indian. And basically it's a revenge story. So Emily Blunt is an English lady who's gone to America to kill the person who killed her child.
Right.
And she turns up at this hotel in the middle of sort of nowhere. That all there is that, and it's Kieran Hines' character, who's just an utter scumbag. Basically knocks her unconscious, and he tells her that the person she's looking for knows that she's coming, and that there's nothing she can do, and he's going to kill her there and sort of thing, but probably have his way with her, that sort of thing. And the Eli character, who was a American Army scout, is basically trying to get to, I can't remember where it is he says he's going. He's going to go up north. Basically, they're told that if you serve in the army, you can be part of, you'll get your share of the Settlement Act, which means you get a piece of land, and you can, you're going to have your little piece of land, and it's yours and all that blah stuff, which everybody keeps telling him is utter bullshit. They're never going to give him.
Yeah.
He's an Indian. They're never going to fucking give him this piece of land. And he is at this. He was just passing through, and he just wanted to have a drink, and they beat him up. He kind of gets let go. Emily Blunt sort of wants him, kind of persuades the guy to let him go, and so he goes in. But he does come back. Basically, through a series of things, they end up traveling together. As things go along, first of all, it's a sort of case of, it's just I'm not gonna stay with you. Yes, I will. Okay, maybe not. That sort of whole sort of rigmarole of will they stay together or will they not? Will they end up traveling together? And so they do, and they're going, to this place where this massacre of Indians happened, and there's a sort of this all this interconnected stories of something that happened sort of just after the Civil War, and these characters and how they relate to the person that she's trying to kill.
Right.
And they set up a number of things that you sort of if you were really paying attention, the stuff is going on that you could, oh shit, okay, that's, there's a few revelations that one in particular to me was like, oh fuck, that was so obvious. Like, they even showed you bits and pieces throughout the whole series that you should have been obvious, but it wasn't until the right moment. And I really liked what the reasons for how she got where she's, for doing what she's doing, and the specifics of how her child died and stuff like that, and what happened to her are really interesting and really well done. I really liked it, and it's at its core, it's a very revisionist Western, with revenge sort of thing that at times feels like it's got a sort of Tarantino flavor to it at times.
Yeah.
It could easily have fit in it with Hateful Eight or something. That sort of. So sometimes there's a little bit of a level of craziness that you just think, oh, and there are some really fucking crazy characters that get introduced and then sort of get done away with. Like, oh, is that all that character's going to get? That's a shame, because there's one character in particular, this Welsh lady who, it's a slight spoiler, but when you see her, she's got these glasses on, these black, almost like swimming goggles. And when she takes them off, you can see that at some point Indians have taken her eyelids. So she has no eyelids, and they scalped her, so she's like hideous, if you like, and she's become this kind of like a bushwhacker, basically, as leader of a group of bushwhackers. And there are moments where you feel like it's going to be a white man bad thing. And it kind of is to a certain extent. But however, actually, almost everybody's fucking bad. Everybody's awful. Everybody's only out for themselves, really. There's with a few exceptions as it goes along. The two leads are fucking brilliant.
Emily Blunt is usually brilliant.
Exactly, it's Emily Blunt. So she's the. Not really stretching herself. She's just posh English lady,
Yeah, she's good at that.
Exactly. But the guy who plays the Indian scout, Chesapeake Spencer, was I found when I looked him up. He's like, oh, he's one of the Wolf Boys from the Twilight movies. Okay, fair enough. He's great. Is this sort of scout that's kind of on his own, and he's his family that's died, and he worked for the army, and all the other Indians look down on him because of what he's done, and he just wants to find a new home, and he just wants this piece of land that he's told he can have, which I said he's never going to fucking get.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderfully performance from Rafe Spall, who's I am not going to spoil his character at all. He's just great, really, really good. Tom Hughes is great in the part that he's got. There's just some really good sort of, and it's I think it's basically it's like a spaghetti western. It's filmed in Spain, so it's got these sort of elements where you go, oh, okay, this I see what they've done there, and there's like mostly English sort of actors wandering around in very small parts. Like even now I'm forgetting. Toby Jones is in a very small part, who's great, Julian Bleach, who's the current Davros, plays this fucking awesome soldier. Yeah, he's a great. He's on villain duties in this. He's great. There were some very clumsy bits in it that I was very dissatisfied with. Towards the end, there's something happens. I'm not going to spoil what happens. There's something happens, and there's this sort of convoluted excuse for something happening, and it's like there doesn't. I can't sort of really go into the details without giving it stuff away, but all I'll say is they could have come up with something better than what they did. It feels very like, and this happens, and that happened, and that's why this happens. Like, really? You couldn't write a better ending than that? The overall ending I'm happy with. What eventually happens was kind of cool. But the initial sort of ending thing was like, they didn't need to do that. They could have came up with a better excuse for what could have happened. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It's a really good Western series. Blunt's great. The Spencer's really fantastic, and Stephen Ray's in it. He's great in the part that he's got. It's just full of really great little performances. And it's, even though at times it will, rather like the last thing I talked about, it will sort of depress you at times because everybody seems to be fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's a horrible period of history, really.
But it's exactly.
Well, certainly in that location. Yeah.
There are some nice little twists when they do come and really satisfying, and the overall storyline is just really cool, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really fun, well, not fun. It's a really well made Western series that with two great performances. If you like Westerns and you like kind of miserable Westerns, then this is the series for you. It's really good. It's only like 6 episodes, so it's not even that long. It's a very short series, but it's very well put together. I liked it a lot.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's worth a watch to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have watched, as of this lunchtime, I've watched 4 of, I think, the 10 episodes of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters.
Oh, okay.
It's all right.
I'm gonna wait till it all comes out. I think.
Yeah, I would probably wait. It's an interesting thing on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, effectively takes place. Picks up after the 2014 movie. So it's after Godzilla and the Mutos fought in San Francisco and basically ruined San Francisco.
Right.
And we follow Kate Randa. So her father disappeared, or is considered to be dead, during the Battle of San Francisco. She heads to Japan to basically settle family affairs, and actually discovers that she has a whole nother side of her family that her father never told her about. So Kate meets her half brother, who basically it turns out that her father, who is the son of Liam Shaw. Liam Shaw? Is it Liam Shaw? What's his name? Shaw. Anyway. Lee Shaw, I think. Lee Shaw. Who is played by Kurt Russell.
Okay.
It's his son. So he's basically their grandfather, I guess. Basically, he had an affair and a whole nother family. One in America, one in Japan. We've got this interesting, which I think is probably the most interesting part of the series, is Kate meeting Kentaro, her half brother, and that whole half of the family that she was completely unaware was a thing.
Yeah.
It basically kind of goes from there. Their father had some secret documents. We see at the start of the series, we see old Randa as he was, played by John Goodman, dodgy CGI face John Goodman.
Yeah.
In a scene that never happened in Kong Skull Island. They've kind of like taken some liberties, which is probably the biggest issue I have with the series, if I'm honest.
Right.
A scene that never happened, in which he basically took some video footage and then dumped it in the water, and it gets picked up by fishermen and then ends up in the hands of their father. They has all these classified documents, and so Monarch are out to track down these documents for reasons, don't know why, we'll find out as the series goes on. It's kind of jumping between that period of time and the 50s, when we see young Shaw, played by Kurt Russell's son, has a wonderful transition between Kurt Russell and his son. It, as you can imagine, matches very well as they transition back through time. And we basically see kind of the formation of Monarch, which Lee Shaw basically formed alongside a couple of other people. Right. So we get the history of the forming of Monarch, and then we see Kurt Russell nowadays, who is basically, he's left the organization, but he's in this retirement village. It's run by Monarch, and they've got cameras everywhere, and it's basically a prison for retired Monarch people.
Okay, yeah. It's like the village for...
Kind of, yeah. It's got some really nice... There were some bits I really liked. Like, certainly, it was... Even the bits I liked, though, come with caveats. So, I really liked... We go to Japan.
Yeah.
And we see that Japan are as set up as a city... Tokyo and Japan in general is clearly set up very well for a kaiju attack. They have, like, kaiju bunkers where you can go and take cover. They've got missile defense systems. It kind of reminds me of the old kind of Showa era maser and missile systems that they used to have in Japan in those movies. So basically they're very well set up. Now obviously where this comes into being a problem, and this is the series' biggest issue, is that we don't see any of that in the movies that come after this. Like, that never existed, so they've revised that. And as with all prequels, I just think you need to be careful when you're being a prequel. They revisit scenes and they don't match at all. Like what happens in this series, and in episode 1 I was like, well, that thing with Randa, that never happened, but I guess you could argue maybe there was a point you could get away with that. And then they redo the Godzilla.
I mean, you're always with his character, so you could at least get away, I suppose, with if he's
it's specifically the spider scene in the forest. And okay. he runs out of the forest, and I guess it must be a second spider follows him out and has a fight with another monster, and then he dumps the thing. So it feels awkward, but I'm like, okay, fine. And then they redid the Godzilla bridge scene, which isn't too bad. I think you'd have to have watched the original Godzilla movie, not the original, the 2014 Godzilla movie. You'd have to have watched that a few times to have even noticed that it's quite different, but it doesn't quite match. So I was kind of like, okay, but fine. It's minor. That was like a minor continuity thing, but it is the kind of thing where it's like, if you'd watched it a few times, you'd probably picked up on how to have kind of made that work a little better. But then it kind of gets to stuff like the new them bombing Godzilla, which you see in every Godzilla movie. It's in the opening credits to every Godzilla movie that they've done so far. It's completely different. It doesn't match in any way. They've completely changed it, which I guess is fine, but it's weird when you're doing a prequel series to these films and you're like, well, are you or aren't you? Because none of this really matches anymore. It feels like you're kind of changing things and picking and choosing what you want to do.
I take it's more than just different angles.
Oh no, yeah, it's very different.
Right.
Yeah. There's bits that just kind of, it just doesn't quite fit. Like in the movies, you see basically Godzilla's spines come out of the water and then the bomb goes off. In this, he like full on gets out of the water, walks up to the nuke and looks at the nuke like, oh, what's that? And then it blows up. And it's like it just doesn't match at all what we used to see. But overall, as its own thing, it's interesting. I quite like the characters, which is good. It's kind of keeping me going. It's hard not to like Kurt Russell, to be honest. They do address... I'm really glad. I didn't think they were going to address the fact that fucking Kurt Russell's Lee Shaw is clearly like 100 years old. But they do actually, like, one of them's like, aren't you like 100 or something? So they do actually reference it, and he's just like, yeah, fine, you know. They kind of make a joke of it. But at least they addressed it, you know, because otherwise it is like, this doesn't really add up. Really like the character of Kate, played by Anna Swy. I don't think I've seen her in anything until this, but she's really good. I quite like the characters. It definitely suffers from series-itis. In particular, the episode I watched at lunchtime today, we get they're heading to, I think it's Antarctica. Is that Antarctica they go to? Somewhere snowy. No, it's Alaska. Sorry, they go to Alaska for reasons. And on the way, their plane crashes, and we get an entire episode that basically nothing really happens. There's a monster in it, which is cool. It's a cool design, but it's like, and nothing was really discovered or learnt, and we move on. And it's kind of like, didn't really need to have that episode at all. It feels very much like they're stretching things out already. But we'll see. I'm only 4 episodes in, and obviously it's a 10-episode thing, according to Wikipedia. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of the mind that it's... I don't know. I think it's going to be okay as its own thing.
Is it one of those something and nothing things?
Kind of. It kind of feels like that so far. We'll see whether it has more kind of lasting implications as the show goes on. But for now, they've done it in a really weird period of time, because like between 2014 and King of the Monsters, fuck all happens. Like they say in King of the Monsters, other than Monarch, no one's seen Godzilla. So you're like, nothing much is going to happen.
You get the impression they've just been going down and tracking where the...
Yeah. So I think what they're doing with this one is like they're like, well, if it happens in Alaska where no one's around, maybe we can get away with it. And also it's kind of that weird thing where it's really weird when you watch those MonsterVerse movies in a row, because like the first one is trying to be kind of grounded. And then King of the Monsters is like half grounded, half show silly. And then Godzilla vs. Kong is completely silly. And now this is trying to go back to that almost 2014 vibe. It's trying to have its cake and eat it, and it doesn't quite work. And it kind of,
they vary in their style quite a lot.
They do. And if anything, I feel like this series really draws attention to that. Like really draws attention to that. Like you get whiplash if you go from Godzilla vs. Kong to this. You're like, whoa, okay. But you know, it's all right. It's kind of interesting. It's got that, you know, secret government organization, and you know, elements, potentially bad elements within Monarch, which we've not seen before, and you know, it's interesting enough. We'll see. I don't hate it, but I'm not terribly impressed, if I'm honest. So far, it's fine. But we'll see how it goes.
So why she's going to be in that upcoming Shogun series?
Okay, I thought she was great. She puts in a really good performance. So yeah, look forward to seeing that. Anyway, what else have you watched?
So I have also watched Infinity Pool.
Infinity Pool.
So this is the, I think, 3rd movie by Brandon Cronenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And it stars Alexander Skarsgård and Maya Goth.
Mm-hmm.
And basically you're introduced to Skarsgård's James Foster, who is a writer. He's written one book, but it's been like 6 years and he hasn't come up with anything else. And it kind of looks like he's drifting through life. He's got his girlfriend and they've gone on holiday. They're on sort of holiday in this... it's sort of like I think it was filmed in Croatia, but it's basically supposed to be this sort of island in sort of, you know, Eastern European sort of island, sort of non-existing country that looks vaguely Croatian-y type thing.
Yeah.
And basically, he bumps into my Goth's character, who is an actress who specialises in how does this why doesn't this work characters, from like infomercials where this knife will not cut this bread. Why won't this knife cut this bread and stuff like that? And we need the new whatever it is product. So she specialises in that, and she's a bit odd. She's got this sort of this husband, and they seem they seem nice but a bit odd. And she says she's read his book and she loves his. She really enjoyed it. She loves it. And why don't they come and have sort of lunch with them? And he sort of, he's fine. He sort of he's intrigued by them, and he sort of goes in. They sort of have a meal, and his girlfriend finds them a bit too odd, and she doesn't like, what's going on. But
yeah,
they basically Gabby, my Goss character, basically says, "Oh, we're going to go outside," because they're basically the place they're in is this horrible sort of artificial sort of place where they've got like a Chinese restaurant with no Chinese people in it, and it's all sort of a big holiday compound.
Oh yeah.
You're not allowed outside, and there's basically the country itself seems a little odd. And she says, "Oh well, we're going to hire this car. We're going to hire this car, and we're going to go out and have a picnic on the outside." So he's like, his girlfriend's like, "No, I don't think this is a good idea." He's like, "Yeah, come on, it'll be great. We'll get to see what's going on outside. You want to experience new things. Let's go out." So they basically go out. They have this sort of weird thing, this sort of hot, really odd sort of encounter. The place outside is almost like slums, and everybody's sort of just not really having a great life, basically.
Yeah.
And my Goth's character basically wanks off James and sort of they have it's a very odd sort of relationship that starts with them. And when they're driving home, James accidentally runs someone over.
Right.
So they all panic, and they're like, we got to get back. We got at first he's like, well, we got to phone the police and tell. He's like, and she's like, no, you cannot phone the police. They're brutal here. You won't survive if the police find out. Blah blah. So they get back to their hotel. They sort of sneak in. They come up with an excuse for why they were out. They got lost, sort of thing. And basically the police find them anyway because it's like fucking obvious. And pretty much in this place, any crime that you do, pretty much you get murdered for. Basically, you're going to get killed.
Right.
So what will happen is the child of the person you killed, if the person has a son, and luckily he's got two boys, like really young boys, who basically we give them a knife and they're going to stab you to death, basically.
Right.
But there's a thing that they offer in this place, if you've got the money, and that is they will make a complete copy of you. All your memories, all of your thoughts, all your life, and it will look exactly like you, and that will stand in for you, and they will get killed, and then you can just go away. I mean, you will have to watch it. You will be there for the whole thing, and basically, that's exactly what happens. He gets, he gets copied, and then he watches the copy of him get executed by the son of the person he killed. And then you find out that, Maya Goth's character and her husband have basically, there's a group of people that come here for holidays every year,
right,
and they just do horrible, terrible things.
Okay.
And then they get cloned and watch their clones die.
Okay.
And it's basically, it's kind of about two things. It's about sort of, the collapse of the soul,
mm-hmm,
and morality, and basically the modern life, and how that sort of how disconnected we are, and all that sort of stuff. So it's typical stuff. You get there's some really great scenes, the sort of the scenes where they get them cloned, and there's sort of like some very trippy sort of scenes where they do drugs and things, and there are times where you're not sure whether they're what's going on is real or not, and my Goth's character is completely unfucking hinged, and I'm not going to say anything but about the whole thing, but it didn't grab me as I thought it was going to.
Right.
The Cronenberg's movie Possessor, I thought was wonderful. That was
that's a really good movie.
That was like, I think might have even been my number one movie that year.
I think it was because I watched it on your recommendation.
I loved that movie so much; it completely grabbed me, and that that was about identity and how we lose ourselves, and that was beautifully done. This one doesn't seem to be as didn't grab me as much as that one. It's well done. There's some beautiful scenes. Get me wrong, where some fucking really weird, disturbing things. Like there's the whole beginning is in complete darkness, and you just hear their voices talking, and then sort of you get the light, and then there's like a whole bit at the beginning which is basically just upside down, and it's like, well, this is really fucking unsettling, but also sort of almost slightly obvious, if you see what I mean. It's like yes, we get it. The world's turned upside down because of what they own, and it was apparently based on Cronenberg's own holiday experience. He said he went to this, and it was this weird artificial place, and it was the most one of the worst holidays I'd ever been on, because just everything was artificial and everything was horrible, and then outside was just this horrible sort of people living in terrible conditions. And obviously in this movie he's done that, but just turned it up, to 11. I kind of recommend it as a sort of a weird sort of horror movie, but just don't expect anything as great as Possessor. This is it's okay. That the Skarsgård's great as this sort of guy who's sort of falling into degeneracy basically, and becoming part of this horrible group of just horrible fucking people that just are enjoying being horrible. And I think that's one of the reasons why it just wasn't successful for me, because at times it just felt too obvious, and it was more sort of like, I don't know, it could have been done a little bit more how do I put this? I think the build-up could have been better. They could have sort of, maybe eased it in a little better, and sort of, when you get to a certain point, they just hammer it in, and then it becomes too much sort of quite quickly, and then it just becomes a bit of a chore. See what I mean? But it's okay. It's not a bad movie, and I kind of would recommend it, but not Cronenberg, not Brandon Cronenberg's best work, I think. And he's only had like three or four movies, and I think this one's it's nowhere near as good as Possessor, but it's okay. It's not great. It was sort of enjoyable enough.
Sure.
But it was a little bit of a disappointment, I think.
No, okay, fair enough. I'll probably end up watching it because it's Cronenberg,
Yeah.
What else have you watched?
So my final movie is Mafia Mama.
Yes, Toni Collette.
So this is it's on Amazon. Came out this week or last week, I think.
That sounded final, like that was your review. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Just what? Yeah. No. So basically, it's a complete farce comedy, basically. So in the very beginning, you've got basically what looks like a massacre of gangsters, a lot of very dead gangsters, and then you're introduced to Toni Collette's character, what's her name? Kristen, who is a sort of a housewife. Her son is just about to leave for college, Her husband is a bit of a douchebag who's in a band who ends up sleeping with kids. What they call those? What's the one the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a teacher. It's one of those ones that tells you what you can do with your life, sort of thing.
Oh, like a life coach kind of thing.
Yeah, like counselor-y type thing. Yeah,
yeah.
That's
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so he ends up sleeping with her, and of course, she's having a bit of a crisis because her kid's gone, her husband's a douchebag. Then she gets this call from Monica Bellucci's character Bianca, who says, "Your grandfather's died, and he wants you to come to the funeral and he's got something for you." And she's like, "Well, I've never met my grandparents. Me and my mum moved here when I was very little. Don't really have any connection." But she speaks to her friend, and her friend says, "It's a thing. She says, what do you masturbate to?" And she says, Italian cooking programs.
Right.
And she says, "Well, this is your dream thing. You've got to go. You go to Italy. You see a load of things. You have a great time. You sleep with some random over there. It'll be great." So she goes over to Italy, and where she discovers that her grandfather was the head of the Balbano clan, and that he was murdered by their rival Romano, I think it is, clan.
Right.
And the grandfather now wants you to take over as the head. Monica Bellucci Bianca is the cancelliere, and there's a cousin that wants to be boss, but she's not. There's these two great characters who become her bodyguards. Is it Dante and Aldo, who are really, I really love their characters. These sort of slightly bungling bodyguards, but it's completely over the top silliness. There are things like the whole thing, like whenever somebody mentions the name of the other family, they do the whole spit on the floor sort of thing, which is completely over the top and very silly. It's actually quite gory. There's one particular scene with Toni Collette where somebody comes to kill her, and her response is really good. It's a really gross. She does this really gross thing with a shoe.
Right.
It's really funny and really gross as well. It's not a great movie, but I laughed quite a lot. I mean, I think people will really have a hard time with some of it because it is very silly. But Toni Collette is great. She's so lovable as this put upon mum who is been dropped into the deep end, as it were, with this Italian family, and it's very convoluted. It's very silly, and but it's so fun. I really enjoyed it. It's just silly, and Monica Bellucci's great. It's in the very minor part she has. Really, she just sort of turns up, gives some pearls of wisdom, and then sort of disappears again, sort of thing. There's the guy that she bumps into at the airport who sort of, she decides to have a relationship with, but she told, well, don't tell them what you do. And there's a bit where she comes out to sort of, she's told, she says, I don't want to do this, I just want to go home, blah blah blah. And Monica Bellucci's character says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a new phone and you can go if you like, but tonight you have to meet the head of the other family and you have to do this thing. And she comes out wearing this outfit, and the cousin says, wow, she looks like a librarian, but a librarian from an actual library with books, not from a porno. Which I thought was really funny. And it's just absurd situation after absurd situation with sort of murders and people dying, and it's crap, but it's really enjoyable crap, and mainly because Toni Collette and Monica Bellucci are great, and that's kind of it. It's not going to be. I can't imagine it being anybody's favorite comedy ever, But I think if you just give it a go, it's an enjoyable sort of like, I don't know, 2 hours or whatever it is. It didn't feel like it dragged or anything. So it's just a very, very silly comedy directed by Catherine Hardwicke, who did some of the Twilight movies and 13 and stuff like that. So it's got a relatively good director, but I kind of would recommend it just as if you want a silly comedy that has got a great main character in it, then go for it. It amused me enough. It was fun. It was funny enough. I mean, her character and the two bodyguards I thought were great. It's a fun, silly movie.
Yeah, that's fine. Could be worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen comedies recently that just weren't funny. At least this has genuinely funny moments in it.
That is the problem with comedy.
I mean,
it's very subjective, and there's nothing worse than bad comedy, is there?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, it's a great bit where she's she's like, what do we do? And it's like, well, we're into drugs and extortion and prostitution. It's like, isn't there anything nice we do? It's like, we're the mafia. And there's this continuous joke where they're talking about the Godfather, and she's like, I've not seen the Godfather. It's like, what do you mean you've never seen the Godfather? How have you never seen the Godfather? And she's like, well, it's just sometimes hard to get 3 hours to myself.
Try Oppenheimer.
I enjoyed it. It's just a very sort of rap silly movie that's quite fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it for us. Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
There's we saw the Furiosa trailer dropped.
Yes, I didn't realize that had happened. I watched that just before we started.
Mm-hmm. I liked it.
Yes, I think it looks fine.
There's a lot more CG in this one than Fury Road.
Yes, it does look a lot less practical. Anya Taylor-Joy, fantastic actress. Looks nothing like Charlize Theron, but a fantastic actress. So I think in terms of the performance, I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
She's going to be great no matter what.
It looks great. I mean, I loved Fury Road, so I loved the character of Furiosa. So
I think it's now got. I think some people have looked back at it now and have started with the whole, it's just a bit woke, and it's like.
Is it?
Well, I think that.
I don't think it is.
People have pointed out that it's not a Mad Max movie; it's more about Furiosa, which I don't really have a problem with. Everything that happens, basically. Her continuous existence only happens because of Max.
Well, and Max has been sharing movies with other leads since the second movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
The Max movies, other than the first one, they're all about how
the first one is very much Mad Max
into situations, basically.
Yeah. I didn't get that, and I've rewatched it more than once. I think is a beautiful looking movie. The only comment I have on this trailer, and I don't know if you got this was my only time watching it, was just before the show because Matt mentioned it. It looked a bit too clean.
Yes.
Did you get that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's just me.
I think it looked very
CG. I guess
CG.
We'll do that. But like the thing I loved about Fury Road was how kind of gross and everything was.
Yeah.
And this kind of felt a bit clean to me. But we'll see. I mean, certainly I'm going to watch it.
They don't say who's playing Immortan Joe, but Tom Burke is in the cast, so I reckon it's going to be him.
Yeah, possibly.
Which for me, because I like Tom Burke a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. Any other things you want to cover?
I think only Josh Ackland has died. He was 95, so...
Wow.
Yeah. Josh Ackland's one of those character actors that was just amazingly good at playing awful, evil people.
Yeah, but,
very good on bad guy duties.
You need those people.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite roles for his is still... Was it Dinopoulos from Bill and Ted's 2?
Yes.
He's
he is.
Just real sort of chucking himself into that role was great. And of course he's He's the bad guy in for fuck's sake.
He's bad guy. He's bad guy in a million things.
Yeah, no, not Beverly Hills Cop. It's not Beverly Hills Cop, is it? Is it Lethal Weapon?
Lethal Weapon 2?
Is it what's the first one?
The second one. He's the diplomatic community guy.
Diplomatic Community is the first one, isn't it?
Is it? I can't remember. They kind of bleed into one, if I'm honest.
They do,
I thought it was the second one.
He was a really good.
He was a fantastic villain. Yeah, he's great.
A great voice.
Yes.
He did a lot of sort of narration stuff that worked really well because of his wonderful voice.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, as of this recording, it's the 1st of fucking December. So I guess we're on to Christmas movies. So what do you have a choice for the first of our festive season?
It's gonna be The Long Kiss Goodnight.
The Long Kiss Goodnight. Well, it'll probably all be downhill from there, so it's hard to follow that one. Cool, yeah. The Long Kiss Goodnight will be our movie next week. Deep dive. But until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you next time.